Hey everybody, my name is Ed Trevors. I'm an Anglican priest in the Diocese of Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I get to serve in the beautiful town of Shelburne, Nova Scotia, in the awesome parish of Christ Church, Shelburne, that sits on the ancestral and on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I give thanks for you all every single day. I thank God for the time that you spend with me, for the prayers that you offer on my behalf, and especially for all that you share with me and teach me in your comments and in your emails. Today, November 25th, we recognize and we celebrate the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And I want to share with you a little story. This took place years ago when I was in seminary. I was a student placed in what we know as a high church. Now this is a church with all the bells and the smells and the beautiful vestments and the beautiful singing and the choir and the organ music and the old traditional prayer book. One day after the service, my daughter Maya came up to me and said, "Dad, how come this book was written for men?" Now I knew exactly what she was talking about the minute she uttered the question. The book, for those of you that don't know the Book of Common Prayer from 1962 is actually the official prayer book of the Anglican Church of Canada, though it is not the most widely used book in our denomination. It is, you can trace its lineage all the way back to Henry VIII. Anyway, this isn't a history lesson on the prayer book, but the bottom line is that book is filled with very masculine-focused language. I mean, unless it's talking about a particular woman or talking about women in general, its language is almost exclusively uses the male pronouns when talking about men, community, population, people, humanity, almost exclusively the male pronouns. And she realized, at some point during that service, she realized that it wasn't talking about her. It was talking about men. Talking about males. And she felt excluded. She wanted to know why. I didn't want her to feel that way. And I told her, I gave her a crappy excuse. I told her that the book was written at a time when people used man and men as a way of describing populations and describing people and describing groups and describing communities. It's garbage. It's garbage. It's not okay language. And that's really kind of what I want to talk about today. Not necessarily the language of the old prayer book, but rather what it represents. Because what it represents is a power structure. It represents a bias. It represents a way of thinking that allows some people to feel like they're not included in the conversation. In this case, my daughter didn't feel like she was included in our prayers, in our celebration, in our liturgies, because it never made mention of women. It never made mention of she or her. It was about men and males. These kind of structures exist in our world. They exist. They're out there. Sometimes they're visible and active. Other times they're hidden from us and passive. But they're out there. And they all lead us to the same place. They all achieve the same thing. One group of people feel superior. The other group of people feel inferior. And this ultimately, I believe, is what leads us to a place of violence and abuse. Because that group of people that feel superior They look down on the other group. They look at them as though they are lower than, second-class citizens. And sometimes less than human. And because of these sentiments, they feel like they have a right. They're enabled, they're permitted to treat those other people as they see fit, selfishly. And we recognize this sometimes as violence. We recognize this sometimes as abuse. These structures allow for the creation of dynamics which ultimately allow for one group to lord over another, for one person to do violence against another. I am very grateful that in the Anglican Church of Canada, despite the fact that the Christian Church for near 2 millennia have been a part of this problem, the Anglican Church of Canada over the last 60, 70 years has really done a lot of work towards it in going through our laws and going through our canon and going through our belief system and weeding this stuff out. There's still more work to do. And there's still more work for us to do in our communities, in our nations, in our societies. We still tell those jokes. We still watch those commercials. We still buy into those standards. We still see those images. We still objectify. I would encourage all of us as we go forward, when we notice a biased system, name it. Work to dismantle it. Work to warn people about it. Work to free people from it. The United Nations estimates that 1 in 3 women around the world have suffered abuse and or violence. Right now, they are trying to make people aware of what they're calling the shadow pandemic. Because of COVID, because of the strains and the stresses that it is putting on everybody's lives, violence and abuse against women is skyrocketing. I would ask you that in your fashion, you would pray for the women of your world, the women in your communities. Your neighbor may be going through this right now. For those of you that find yourself in a violent or abusive situation, I would encourage you to reach out for help. There are people out there to talk to. There are people that are willing to intervene. There are people that are willing to help you. There's assistance available to you to help you escape that situation. It's normal to be afraid. It's normal to feel trepidation about a big change. There are folks waiting for your call. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you. May you forever know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that as you and I discover these blatant and hidden biases and structures, we'll do everything in our power to shine a light on them and to destroy them. No one should live in fear. Amen.